everybody, and welcome to the lunar eclipse video. That's right, lunar eclipse. That time of year is upon us once again when eclipse season is getting ready to happen. And this particular lunar eclipse is going to take place on the 10th to 11th of February, obviously 2017. And notice I said 10th to 11th. Well, that depends on where you are. I'm in the UK myself, so it's going to be just after midnight. And for those of you who are in the States, it will be on the 10th, earlier in the evening. This is a penumbral eclipse. If you want to find out when this eclipse is taking place in your particular time zone, you can look that up online. The maximum visibility of this particular eclipse is going to be at its maximum at about 43 minutes past midnight UK time. Again, you can look online and find out when that is in your particular time zone. It'll be visible in Europe, much of Asia, North and South America. And as I said, it's a penumbral eclipse. What does that mean? It means that you're only going to see the outer part of the Earth's shadow on the moon. Almost you might think that it's just a regular full moon, but there is actually an eclipse going on. And notice I said Earth's shadow because some of you may not be familiar with what an eclipse is. And that happens in particular, without going into too scientific of an explanation, when there is an alignment of the sun, the moon, and the Earth in between, right? That's a lunar eclipse. You can have a solar eclipse when the sun and moon are conjunct each other, and the moon is passing in between the Earth and the sun in a particular manner that involves something called the ecliptic. But I'm not going to go too deeply into that aspect of it. I just want to keep it simple. This particular lunar eclipse is going to take place in Magha Nakshatra. So we're going to need to talk a little bit about Magha Nakshatra. But if you want to know what this particular eclipse means specifically for you, please do feel free to visit my astrological consultations page, which should be linked below, where you can schedule an astrological consultation with me. First, let's take a look at a lunar eclipse. Let's understand what the moon is in astrology. Right? And in order to understand fully the moon, we need to understand the sun. The sun relates to the Atman, or the soul of everything, including your soul, really, right? Because your soul is part of the soul of everything. Well, the moon is Manas, or I like to call it our sensory mind, how we react to the experiences that we go through when we're here incarnated on the planet, right? Now, if you notice, if you pay attention to the sky, that the moon reflects the light of the sun, right? So our manas, or our sensory mind, is meant to reflect the light of the Atman, or the soul of everything. But sometimes we don't reflect that light so well. And especially during eclipses, it can be challenging to do so. Especially in terms of this particular eclipse, which is conjuncting Rahu, or the north node of the moon, rather than Ketu. The Rahu eclipses, they tend to be a little trickier, right? So with lunar eclipses, Manas, or our sensory mind, gets eclipsed in terms of its particular relationship to the Atman, or the soul of everything. And why is that happening? Well, that's because the Earth's shadow is falling upon the moon, or the shadow of what we're going through in our own particular incarnation is getting reflected or imprinted upon our sensory mind, right? So let's talk a little bit about Magha Nakshatra. And I'm going to go into depth with this because I think it's important to understand, and you can already begin to see, if you watch the news and pay attention to what's going on, a little bit of this manifesting. And I'm not going to point fingers, but I think everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about, okay? Especially when I go into it. Otherwise, you're not going to know what the hell I'm talking about, right? So let's get into it. Let's explain it. Each of the nakshatras has a basis, or a foundation, right? And that foundation is based upon something called the gunas. There are three gunas. There's Rajasic, and there's Tamasic, and there's Sattvic energy. Rajasic, a good way to understand that is it's very self-oriented, right? But it tends to be equally very desire-oriented, and it tends to create, well, for lack of a better way to explain it, a lot of very racy energy, okay? So the first 9 nakshatras are Rajasic at their foundation. And that's necessary because the first 9 nakshatras starts with Ashwini. That's like the primal spark, okay? The final final 9, I should say, nakshatras are Sattvic at their foundation. Sattvic is the energy of inspiration, that energy that looks upwards, that energy that's receptive to receiving the spiritual impulse. Okay, and I'm just kind of giving simple explanations for this before everybody starts writing all their comments down below going, no, 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 it's actually this. I'm just trying to make it so people can simply understand it, okay? With tamasic energy is very dense, right? Sometimes it brings resistance into our lives. It's the energy, some would say, of darkness, but you're going to understand it better if you understand the fact that it's dense, right? Magha starts the first of the 9 tamasic nakshatras. So at this particular point, what is happening with the soul in Magha Nakshatra? In Magha Nakshatra, the soul that, has come into being through being a primal spark, becoming differentiated, understanding a little bit more of what it's here for, having the wisdom of what it's supposed to do, bestowed upon it through the first 9 nakshatras, and specifically finalizing with Ashlesha Nakshatra. Well, when you enter Magha Nakshatra, what is happening is the soul is beginning its encasement in its material sheath. And Magha Nakshatra, each of the nakshatras has a Shakti. Magha Nakshatra is no different. It gives the power to leave the body. Right? What is actually happening with Magha Nakshatra? Well, the body previously has been the spiritual body. So the soul is leaving the spiritual body almost. I mean, it's still carrying that with it, right? But it's coming into material incarnation. It has this divine memory of where it's come from, all the experiences that it's been through. And now it's recognizing, oh my goodness, I'm here. Why am I here? What happened to this wonderful state that I was in when I was completely merged with divine consciousness? Why am I here again, right? And each nakshatra has 3 specific gunas that blend together to make its energy. And Magha Nakshatra is tamasic at its foundation, and it builds upon that with rajasic energy. So there's this tamasic energy that's becoming encased in form, and it's beginning to feel restless, like, I've got to do something about this. Why am I here? I've got to do something about this. And I'm kind of telling you the story of the soul because I think it'll help you to understand a little bit of this full moon. A little bit of this lunar eclipse, I should say. So basically, there's this concept of going, I'm here. Why have I been left here, right? I'm pissed. I'm upset, right? I don't want to be here, right? So I'm going to get even with whatever left me here, right? It's trying to tell me I should do this, I should do that, and I should do the other thing. Well, forget about that. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do, right? I know better, right? I know what's right, right? I'm the one who knows. I'm the one who's in charge. I'm the one who knows what needs to be done, right? Magha Nakshatra is also connected to the Petries. They are the ancestral deities. And the Petries, they guide the processes of humans when they're incarnated, right? But the thing is they don't like to get involved unless they absolutely, positively have to. Then they step in and kind of correct things along the way. Why don't they want to get involved? Well, when you're here incarnated on the planet, everybody's always telling you to get rid of the ego and get rid of that. Well, guess what? You need that damn ego, right? You're here. You need to have that sense of individuality, that sense of who you are, that sense of what you're experiencing, so that you are able to work through the experiences, have a relationship to space and time and all of those things, right? Until you're ready to let go of the ego. But you're not initially. You're not initially. So it's not as simple as letting go of the ego. You need that ego. So the Petries want you to have a strong sense of individuality, a strong sense of ego, and a strong will, so that you're able to navigate the experiences in your life, so that you're able to have confidence in yourself, right? But every once in a while, the individual becomes a little bit, well, too confident, or a little bit too cocky, right? And instead, they just kind of ignore all the impulses that are there around them. Well, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. And like I was saying before, well, forget about that. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to. And there can really be a large tone of that with this particular full moon. And something that's interesting, and something that we will, I'm not going to spend too much time on, is as Magha Nakshatra is connected to the ancestral deities, there can be a tone of energy with this particular lunar eclipse that's connected to cultural pride, ancestral pride, cultural pride. Well, what does that mean? A country's pride, right? Well, we think that we should do this, and so we're just gonna, kind of get rid of everybody else who doesn't agree with us. We're going to do this, right? And so a lot of that can, kind of come into being. Interestingly enough, in a couple of weeks, the solar eclipse is going to be in Shatabishak Nakshatra. It too has an energy of humanity being guided by something higher. But again, humanity having to learn through its own mistakes. But we'll cover that in the solar eclipse video. So how does this connect to you specifically? Well, like I said, if you want to know your specific astrology related to this, you can schedule with me. But to give a general understanding of it, we need to take a look at everything that is going on. Magha gives the power to leave the body, right? Well, sometimes when we're here, we need to be able to kind of just get on with things, right? And sometimes we might have a lot of stuff brewing beneath the surface that we're not really certain of, but we recognize that, you know what, I've got to be strong, and I've really got to navigate through this particular experience. And as I'm navigating through this particular experience, I don't really have the luxury or the time to kind of sit and dwell on what needs to be done. And there's a lot of dwelling that's going on beneath the surface, right? Because at the time of this particular lunar eclipse, there's a special interaction, special aspect going on between Jupiter, Venus, and Mars. And Jupiter is in Chitra Nakshatra. Mars is in Revati Nakshatra. And Venus is in Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra. I'm just going to give simplistic explanations of this particular energy. Mars in Revati Nakshatra is influencing Jupiter because Jupiter is in Mars's nakshatra. So with Mars in Revati Nakshatra, there's something that Mars is wanting to protect, something that Mars is wanting to safeguard at any cost, something that you're wanting to protect, something you're wanting to safeguard at any possible cost, perhaps even somebody that you're wanting to protect or somebody you're wanting to safeguard at any possible cost. And beneath the surface with that, there's this sense of ethics, this sense of responsibility, this sense of this is my dharma, and this is something that I absolutely positively have to do. And as Venus is closing in on a conjunction with Mars at the time of this lunar eclipse, Venus is in Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra. And Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra can get really passionate with this, and especially when you have Venus and Mars connecting with each other, right? Well, understand it as Venus being the minister in material affairs. Mars is the general, right? So the minister is advising the general and impassioning the general in terms of a sense of ethics and going, you need to go do this and you need to act now and this is what needs to happen. And don't listen to anybody else who might tell you something different. You just need to put all of your fears, all of your concerns, all of your apprehensions, all to one side and just do what I tell you, right? And as you do what I tell you, you just need to ignore what's going on beneath the surface. But the truth of the matter is, you don't need to ignore what's going on beneath the surface. Spirit is flowing through you. Spirit is flowing through you for a reason, right? And that reason is you're not doing anything. So get up off your bum. That's not what I mean. You're not doing anything. Something is being done through you. Something is being done through you. All these actions that you're getting mentally involved with, right? That you're concerned about, that you're flipping out about, you can turn them all over to God, really. You know what? You don't have to get as mentally involved with it. You don't need to be the star of the show. You don't need to be either the hero or the villain, right? You just need to get on a certain level with what feels right in your heart. So is that advisor right when it's saying that? Well, on one level, it is right. It is right. But by the same token, you've got to listen and pay attention to a lot of things that are going on beneath the surface. I should mention at the time that this is happening, Mercury is in Shravana Nakshatra. Shravana is associated with the ears, so tuning in, listening, right? Sun at the time of this eclipse is in Dhanishta Nakshatra. And with the sun in Dhanishta Nakshatra, it's about knowing and trusting that sure, there's something that you have to protect, but you don't need any attention for protecting something. You don't need to draw attention to yourself for protecting something. You just need to do it because it's your ethics and what feels right. And somebody else, well, they might want to protect something else. And so you might be, their antagonist, somebody that, is their enemy, so to speak, right? And sure, that's all part of the divine play. You have something to learn from them. They have something to learn from you. Right? And so we're all involved in this particular divine play that's going on. So ultimately, what is the lesson of this particular full moon? Well, the lesson of this full moon is, sure, there's something that you're put here for. There's something that you're born for. And you're feeling guided to take action in alignment with that sense of purpose, with that sense of driven energy, right? But you don't want to be too proud. You don't want to be too cocky. You don't want to shut your ears and your eyes to everything else that's around you, right? Instead, you've got to listen. You've got to pay attention, or you're going to go too far, right? So the Petries associated with Magha Nakshatra, those are your ancestors. Let's spend a little bit of time on that. I get the feeling this is going to be a really long video, but I'm into the conversation here. So let's kind of go into it, right? Let's talk about the concept that for several lifetimes your soul has interacted with other souls, right? Well, your soul has probably interacted with your grandfather, grandmother, your mother and father through several different lifetimes, right? And they may owe a karmic debt to you, so they give birth to you as an individual. You owe a karmic debt to them for giving birth to you, right? So when we're born into a family, we tend to have karma through that family that's handed down to us, right? And if you want to leave family out of it, hey, don't talk about my family. If you want to leave family out of it, right? Well, you're born here within a certain group of people, right? You're born as an American or as a British person or as somebody from India, right? And you've got the karma of that country within you. On a certain level, that's what the Petries are about. That's what the ancestral deities are about. And what we need to be particularly careful with on this planet is that one country's ancestral lineage doesn't step on another person's ancestral lineage or poo-poo upon another country's ancestral lineage. That one person's ancestral lineage doesn't poo-poo upon another person's ancestral lineage. Instead, we need respect for our elders. We need respect for the elders of other countries. We need respect for the elders several generations ago, thousands of years ago, who, you know, gave us wisdom to learn, to pay attention, to tune in. We need to develop respect. And that, my friends, is the message of this particular lunar eclipse, right? If you're lost, if you're confused, if you don't know which direction to turn because your mind and what you're picking up on is kind of taking you down the wrong road, pay attention to the signs and signals. If somebody's trying to offer you advice, well, just because they might have a different opinion than you, it doesn't mean that you necessarily need to ignore their opinion. Doesn't mean you need to listen to it. Doesn't mean you need to follow it either. But it might be a good idea to listen, right? Because we've all been here before. We've all been here before. You, as an American, well, you might have been Indian in a previous birth. You, as an Indian, well, perhaps you might have been American in a previous birth. I like using the analogy, we're all recycled, right? So why get into it, right? Other than the fact that it might be an interplay of karma. But karma is meant to be resolved. So pay attention, learn. If you're in a position where, you know, a sense of overwhelming ethics is making you feel that you need to kind of create a distance from somebody else, well, maybe you do need to create a distance. Maybe that is something that needs to happen, right? But, you know, by the same token, do it with respect. Do it with understanding. Do it with class, right? Class. And so Magha is a lot about dignity. So do it with dignity. Do it with dignity, do it with class, and do it with respect. Because that person that you might choose to disrespect, well, you might have been in their position previously, or you might be in the same position somewhere down the line, right? And I know this has been a rather long-winded lunar eclipsing, but hey, you know, I got on a roll, and Magha is a pretty profound nakshatra. And I would say the key themes are, with this particular lunar eclipse, cultural pride, pride about your path, pride about your beliefs, pride about where you come from, pride about where you're going, and the feeling that you know best, and perhaps you do. That can be a good thing, right? And you need to just trust in your heart when you know best, but not necessarily tell somebody else that, no, you're wrong, and I'm just going to do this, that, and the other thing to you because you're wrong. Instead, you just need to kind of go, you know what? I know what's right for me, and I just need to go down this path. And if I get it all wrong and screw up horribly in the process, well, so be it. I'll learn from it, right? And that's the key to learning, listening, paying attention. That's going to do it for your lunar eclipse video. I should say, if you would like to know a more in-depth explanation of where these concepts of pride, where these concepts of dignity, where you need to pay special attention to during this particular lunar eclipse period, I do offer several levels of astrological service that are available through the link that you should see in this video below. That's going to do it. Please take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.